over my career, I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars of data, digital data, and certainly anticipate scaling to nine figures of data sales revenue that's recurring. And that's, that's what we're doing this for. And again, back to the earlier point, we're here for the long haul.
That, of course, was the 375 AI CEO, Harry Dewhirst, talking about their revenue targets. And if there's anyone that can get them there, it is that guy. And that's just one of many reasons why this project has become one of my highest conviction plays. In fact, I would say it's my highest conviction play really since the bear market back in 2022 into 2023, when I made some of the best investments of my life. And I'm going to be covering everything you need to know in this video about 375 AI. And I'd argue this is one of the more valuable videos I've ever put out. So I highly encourage you to watch this thing through the end. Before I get started, I have to remind you, nothing in this video is financial advice. You need to do your own research because my risk tolerance is likely very different than your risk tolerance. You need to do whatever makes the most sense for you. And if you haven't already, please make sure to show me some love, hit that like button and subscribe. All right, let's kick this thing off. So 375 AI, they are doing edge processing. So data collection, but processing that data at the edge. It's incredibly valuable data. They recently announced that they raised $5 million on top of $5 million they had already raised. So they raised a total of $10 million to this point. Obviously, just launched the token, but their flagship model is something called the 375 Edge. So this thing is comprised of 6 different cameras, and they've been strategically placing these in high traffic areas. They have NVIDIA chips at the edge so they can process the data in real time, and they can then monetize that data. Now, you might wonder, how are they finding locations for these? Because obviously, if you're putting this type of hardware out there, these really high quality cameras, you have NVIDIA chips at the edge, you obviously want to put them in good locations. Well, they happen to have an exclusive partnership with a company called Outfront Media. And Outfront Media has billboards in prime US locations all over the country. In fact, it's estimated that Outfront Media and their billboards are seen by more than 70% of Americans every day. Okay, so when I say they're everywhere, they're freaking everywhere. And once you see this, you will never be able to unsee it, because every time I see a billboard now, I look for this. They're on like every freaking billboard, guys. They're capturing data from vehicles, from people walking, construction area, whatever it may be. And this is what it looks like on the back end. They've created this dashboard so they can click around. They see their different locations. They can then access, the cameras in said location, which they're going to do here in a minute in this demo. And again, they're processing the data at the edge. So they're able to see unique vehicle identifiers. They can see how many people are in the car, etc. And you might wonder, what is the value in this when it comes to commerce? Okay, and this is something that I actually interviewed Harry, their CEO, and there's something that came up. He's like, "Yeah, you wouldn't believe, how much of a blind spot there is when it comes to trends in commerce." And he's like, "What percentage of shopping do you think is done online today?" And I'm like, I don't know, probably 60, 70%. I think about Amazon. I think about after COVID, people transitioned over, right? Y'all, this is staggering to me. But in 2025, in the first 5 months of the year, e-commerce only accounted for 18.4% of retail sales. 18.4%. Okay, over 80% of retail is still done in person. There is a massive blind spot when it comes to understanding, spending trends in person, in brick and mortar, to the extent that, you have hedge funds. Of course, they have their algorithms, right? They want to understand different trends in the market and in the economy. They'll pay top dollar just to get access to freaking satellite images of retail locations, of their parking lots. Now you have this data set where you can fill in these blind spots in real time, vehicles passing in certain areas. I should add, they're strategically right now placing them in areas where you have your major ports so they can see that the trucks that are coming in and out. So not only is this going to be valuable for your hedge funds that are looking to get better data for their algorithms to understand, what trends are happening in the economy. But you think about transit, shipping companies are going to want to have this data. It's a data set that hasn't existed to this point. And you could argue that maybe some municipalities have cameras in their cities, but are they processing at the edge? And there's no place you can go right now to get a holistic view of the country. And that is what they're building out at 375 AI. The total addressable market. What do you think the total addressable market is? I mean, this is obviously a new data set. You're going to keep expanding, but I mean, do you have revenue goals for, the end of next year and 2 years out, 3 years out, or what are your thoughts behind that? Because it's obviously massive.
Yeah, I mean, forecasting revenue is, difficult in a market that's number one, huge, and number two, new. However, there are proxies of which to go by, and Tyler brought up a good point that 80% of commerce happens offline, yet there's also almost no information about what's going on offline that's of any kind of fidelity to that of what you get in the online world. The online data business is worth hundreds of billions, and therefore, if you did the math and said that we could get equivalent information in the offline world, and it's 5 times bigger, then the opportunity is huge. Over my career, I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars of data, digital data, and certainly anticipate scaling to 9 figures of data sales revenue that's recurring. And that's what we're doing this for. And again, back to the earlier point, we're here for the long haul.
If you're getting to 9-figure revenue numbers, I mean, you'd be the leading DePIN project.
I'm not going to be there next week, but that's where we're going to get to by hook or by crook.
This is a brand new data set that's never existed before. And when you have the processing at the edge with NVIDIA chips, it's really mind blowing, actually. But the other thing they did is they made it so that you can participate in other ways. So they're not just collecting data with their flagship model, the 375 Edge. They have the 375 Go app. And this is something that anyone can download. It's free to download on your phone. And it's collecting a different type of data set. It's calculating the connectivity. And you should see the amount of people that have downloaded this app and are participating. In fact, a lot of those people got airdrops today. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But this is an easy way for anyone to participate. And for people that are more hands-on, because the 375 Edge, obviously, that flagship model is showing, they have the locations already, locked down for that device or for that hardware, if you will. They want to put it in really high traffic areas. Obviously, there's going to be areas, though, that aren't captured there, right? There's going to be some other blind spots, if you will. And that is why they also are going to be releasing something called 375 Street. Okay, so this is for those people that are more hands-on in DePIN. There's a lot of y'all out there, I know. You'll be able to get this hardware. It's comprised of 2 different cameras instead of 6. And it's something that you can set up on your own, okay? So if in your area, maybe it's not as much of a high traffic area, it doesn't mean it's not important. It just means that it would be overkill to put a 375 Edge device there. In this case, you could set up a street device and start earning tokens for participating in the network. Okay, so they are building this thing out in real time, and it's obviously very impressive what they've been able to do. In fact, this is something that came up in our DePIN happy hour last week. If you haven't checked that out, you should. And this is Quez, who is on the 375 AI team, talking about a potential customer announcement.
There is news of a partnership coming really, really soon with a Fortune 20 company.
Google?
I'm not going to say yes or no to absolutely anything.
And that's fair, Quez, but a Fortune 20 company. And this is a trend we're starting to see more and more, especially with this new, round of token launches with DePIN. They already have revenue. They already have contracts. They've already built out the network to the extent that they have product market fit. Okay. This is a new concept. If you're around for the last market cycle, you had a lot of supply being built out in the sense that you're building out a network, but a lot of them weren't getting usage. A lot of them weren't generating revenue. We're getting to the point where some of them are now years later, but this is this is actually wild. I mean, you have a project that had TGE today that already is working with a Fortune 20 company. You might wonder, how are they doing it? Well, a lot of it has to do with this guy, Harry Dewhirst. He was Forbes 30 under 30 back in 2016 because he was the CEO of Linksys. Like in his 30s. This is a company that's been around forever. Raised $160 million in new funding for Linksys. Came in and really turned the company around in a matter of 2 years in his tenure there. Before that, worked for Bliss. They also had a successful exit to a private equity firm. And before that, he co-founded Amobi. Guys, they sold for $321 million. Okay, this guy has executed time and time again. And that is why they've been so successful already with 375 AI. Not just Harry. They have a freaking solid team, guys. It's not just Harry. But if you want somebody to be running the ship, that's who you want to be running the ship. And it's actually people like him. And there's some other really solid founders in DePIN, but seeing this type of talent come into the space, I think it just further reinforces like we are in the right place. Obviously, market conditions haven't been fantastic. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more here in a minute, and why we have really a great opportunity, in my opinion, to be getting into this project. Number one, they had a public sale that was live like 2 to 3 weeks ago. Those were valued at 7.5 cents or 75 million fully diluted valuation. Okay, 50% of that unlocked today. The rest is going to be over a 12-month linear unlock. But again, when the token's under this price, I can't imagine those people are selling. Okay, so that's not adding to the sell pressure. But again, 7.5 cents. Then you look at their early investors. The last round, which closed in July here, 55 million. That was 0.055 cents is what the early investors were buying it at. And you look at the seed round from August of 2023, that's over 2 years ago. These people invested at 0.055. Okay, again, a 1-year cliff. They don't have their tokens yet. They'll start getting them unlocked in a year and then over a 3-year vesting schedule. We're currently under the price that the early investors got in at 0.043. You can get exposure to this project under the price point that the early investors from 2 years ago got into. Sorry if you are an early investor and watching this, you're probably like, I know. But here's what you have to take a step back and kind of consider what this means. They're launching in probably the worst market conditions you can possibly imagine for a DePIN project. I mean, we are seeing alts more oversold than any time in history. And I would argue that if we were launching in the midst of a bull run, this is not where the price would be. Okay. One of the things that sucked this year is that DePIN has gotten absolutely hammered, but you could find silver lining in things. Token launches like this and being able to literally get in and get exposure to a project at a lower price than their early investors. And I would argue that their early investors, like, that was a really good entry point. This is a freaking gift, in my opinion, not financial advice, but to me, being able to buy tokens at this price, you're not subject to any lockup period like the early investors are. This wouldn't happen in a bull run.
And those are the reasons why I have been aggressively buying the dips on the EAT tokens since their recent TGE and have made it one of my largest holdings in my portfolio. They have the product market fit, they have a path to revenue, and I believe under the leadership of Harry Dewhirst, they will get there. And when you couple that with the current market conditions, I believe this could be looked at really as a generational entry. If you liked this video, please make sure to like it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And I will see you in the next video. As always, I appreciate your viewership. Signing off, this is Bradley Meyer with the DePIN Connection.